The truth is that Mama Ocllo wept before she ever taught humanity to weave, and her tears were not for kindness, but for what she knew must end. I am the last who remembers this. The chroniclers write of her emergence from Lake Titicaca with her brother Manco Capac, children of Inti the sun god, bearers of civilization, founders of Cusco. They speak of golden staffs and divine gifts, of how she taught the women to spin and weave, while he taught the men to till and build. They make it sound like mercy. But I was there in those final days when the sun still spoke to mortals, and I alone remember what the founding truly cost. Listen, this is how it happened. Before Mama Ocllo rose from the sacred lake, she lived in the sun itself, not metaphor, actual residence within Inti's burning halls, where light took solid form and truth wore no disguise. There she learned the architecture of all things that would ever be, saw every thread of fate woven tight across the loom of time. She witnessed the rise of empires and their fall. She watched cities climb mountain peaks and crumble into dust. She saw every child who would be born, and every death that would unmake them. And she saw her own fate, too. How she would descend, how she would teach, how she would be forgotten. Her brother Manco Capac knew none of this. Inti kept certain truths from him, mercies that Mama Ocllo begged to share but could not. The sun god's command was absolute. Knowledge of the pattern was hers alone to bear. When they emerged from Lake Titicaca's frigid waters at dawn, the world was savage and starving. Humans ate clay and roots, wore animal skins poorly cured, huddled in caves against the Andean cold. They did not plant. They did not build. They did not ask the earth's permission before taking, and so the earth gave grudgingly. Manco Capac raised the golden staff their father had given him. Where this sinks into soil, he said, there we will build the navel of the world. They walked. Days became weeks. The staff remained rigid, rejecting valley after valley. Mama Ocllo said nothing, though she already knew where it would sink, had seen the vision burned into her eyes in Inti's halls. She watched her brother's hope and determination, his noble bearing, his certainty that they were bringing light to darkness. She did not tell him that light sometimes reveals horrors better left in shadow. At night, while Manco Capac slept, she practiced spinning. Not the gentle art she would teach mortal women, but a different kind of thread. She pulled starlight from the sky and wove it into patterns that matched what she had seen in the sun. Each thread was a life. Each crossing was a choice. Each knot was a moment where fate could be bent, if only someone knew how to pull it. This was the gift Inti had truly given her, not just foreknowledge, but the ability to alter the pattern. The price was that she must never use it for herself. A condor followed them, vast and silent, its shadow crossing their path each noon. Manco Capac called it a good omen, a messenger of the gods. Mama Ocllo knew better. It was watching to ensure she kept her silence, held her knowledge close, played the role assigned to her without deviation. Free will and fate danced together in her chest like serpents devouring each other's tails. They reached the valley of Cusco on the day she knew they would. The golden staff sank into the earth like a knife through butter, buried itself to the hilt in one smooth motion. Manco Capac shouted in triumph. The earth hummed with acceptance. This was the place. The first people came cautiously, drawn by the light that emanated from the children of the sun. They were small, these mortals, bent by hunger and fear. They spoke in fragments, had no words for tomorrow or yesterday, lived only in the desperate now of survival. Manco Capac taught the men to plant maize in terraced fields, to channel water from mountain streams, to build with stone so precisely that no mortar was needed. He taught them to honor Inti with gold and to measure time by the sun's passage. He was radiant with purpose, every inch a god's true son. Mama Ocllo gathered the women. She showed them how to spin thread from llama wool, how to weave fabric tight enough to hold warmth, how to make patterns that held meaning. But more than this, she taught them to see the connections between things, how one thread pulls another, how a pattern emerges from many small choices, how what you make today becomes what you wear tomorrow. They learned quickly, these mortal women. Too quickly. One of them, a girl named Corey with clever fingers and quick eyes, began to understand more than she should. "Mother Ocllo," she asked one evening as the sun set crimson over the mountains, "why do you weep when you spin?" Mama Ocllo's hands stilled. Around them, the other women continued their work, but Corey waited, her gaze direct and unafraid. "I weep for the pattern," Mama Ocllo said finally. "What pattern?" This was the moment. Mama Ocllo felt it like a string pulled taut across her chest. In Inti's halls, she had seen this conversation. She had watched herself refuse to answer, watched Corey turn away unsatisfied, watched the girl become a master weaver who taught hundreds, but never learned the deeper truth. But she had also seen the other path, the one where she spoke, the one where she gave away the knowledge she was forbidden to share. The condor cried overhead, sharp and warning. Mama Ocllo looked at the thread in her hands, at the half-finished pattern that showed tomorrow's weather, and next week's harvest, and next year's drought. She thought of Manco Capac, her brother who believed himself free while walking roads already laid, who thought his choices were his own while following a script written in sunlight. She thought of all the people who would come after, who would build an empire thinking themselves masters of their fate, while dancing on strings they could not see. "Corey," she said, and her voice carried the weight of stars. "What if I told you that everything we do has already been done? That the city your children's children will build is already written in the sky? That every choice is just a thread we pull because the loom demands it?" The other women had stopped spinning. They were all listening now. "I would ask," Corey said carefully, "if knowing the pattern means we could change it." "That," Mama Ocllo said, "is the question that breaks gods." She stood. The thread fell from her hands. In the fading light, she began to show them what she had seen, not with words, for words were too small, but with the only language she had mastered in Inti's halls. She spun fate itself into visible form, pulled the future down like raw wool, and twisted it into thread they could see and touch and understand. She showed them the empire that would rise, the temples that would catch the sun, the roads that would span mountains. And she showed them the ending too. The strangers from across the sea, the plague, the gold melted down and shipped away, the forgetting. "This is what will be," she said. "This is the thread your descendants will walk." "Can we change it?" Corey whispered. Mama Ocllo felt the condor's shadow fall across her shoulders, felt her father's attention turn toward her like a burning eye, felt the architecture of fate begin to crack around her words. "Yes," she said, "but the cost is that you must know. You must carry the weight of what's coming. You must make choices with eyes open, knowing that free will and fate are not opposites, but partners in a dance older than the sun." Thunder without clouds. The earth shook. Manco Capac came running from the half-built terraces, the golden staff in his hands. "Sister, what have you done?" "I have given them truth," she said. "The gift Inti gave me to carry alone I have shared. Let him judge me for it." The judgment came at dawn. Inti himself descended in a column of terrible light, his vast disk face impassive as the sun. He did not speak to Mama Ocllo. He did not need to. She felt the knowledge being pulled from her mind like thread unspooling. felt the visions of the future fade to blessed darkness, but the knowledge she had woven into thread remained. The patterns she had shown the women stayed visible, tangible, real. Inti could take back his gift, but he could not unmake what she had already made. "You have broken the covenant," Inti said, and his voice made the mountains tremble. "You were to guide, not to enlighten, to teach skills, not truths." "Then I am no longer your daughter," Mama Ocllo said. "I am only myself." The sun god regarded her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. It was terrible and sad and proud all at once. "You were always only yourself," he said. "That is what I feared you would discover." He rose back into the sky. Mama Ocllo felt herself changing, felt divinity draining from her limbs like water. She was becoming mortal, becoming small, becoming free of the pattern she had seen written in light. Manco Capac caught her as she fell. "Why?" he whispered. "We could have ruled forever." "Forever is just another cage," she said. "I chose to set them free, and myself with them. I know this story because I am Corey's granddaughter's granddaughter, born in the shadow of the knowledge Mama Ocllo shared. We have kept the threads she wove, hidden them from those who would use them wrong, shown them only to those who understand that knowing the future is not the same as being bound by it. The empire rose as she showed us it would, and yes, the strangers came. The plague ravaged, the gold was taken. But because we knew, because we carried the weight of that knowing, we also saved what mattered. We hid the stories in our weaving. We encoded the truths in patterns that looked like decoration. We made choices with eyes open. Mama Ocllo died mortal and old, her hands still spinning thread in the city she and her brother built. They say at the moment of her death, the sun dimmed for exactly one breath, and every loom in Cusco stopped mid-throw. But the threads she wove did not end. We carry them still, we who remember. We are the last people who know the truth, that she loved us enough to fall for us, to become mortal for us, to give us the terrible gift of seeing our fate and choosing what to do with it anyway. That is the real beginning of civilization. Not planting or building or weaving, but the moment someone loved you enough to show you the pattern and trust you to change it. I am old now. When I die, another will take up this telling. The thread continues. That is the choice Mama Ocllo gave us. Not freedom from fate, but freedom within it. The sun rises each morning, as it always has and always will. But we rise to meet it, knowing what it costs to see clearly. We spin our threads. We weave our patterns. We make our choices. And somewhere in the light between stars, I think she smiles.